Welcome to NIMROD TV, your window to insightful analysis of global affairs. Today we delve into the impact of the 2025 U.S. presidential election on Africa. The U.S., as a global superpower, influences the world stage. Its elections shape the geopolitical landscape and destinies of nations. From trade policies to diplomatic engagements, decisions in Washington, D.C. have a ripple effect globally. This is particularly true for Africa. Africa has a complex relationship with the U.S. The U.S.'s approach towards Africa has varied over the years. With Donald Trump back in politics, the stakes are high. The 2025 election cycle has all eyes on the U.S. For Africa, this election holds particular significance. The outcome could reshape Africa's trajectory. The 2016 U.S. presidential election sent shockwaves across the globe with the unexpected victory of Donald Trump. His tenure, marked by his America First policy and unconventional approach to foreign policy, had a significant impact on Africa. Trump's policies towards Africa were often perceived as disengaged and transactional, with a focus on countering Chinese influence and promoting U.S. business interests. His administration implemented travel bans on citizens from several African countries, withdrew from international agreements like the Paris Climate Accord, and cut funding for aid programs. These actions had tangible consequences, impacting trade relations, diplomatic ties, and development initiatives across the continent. While some welcomed Trump's emphasis on business partnerships and his tough stance on terrorism, others criticized his rhetoric, his perceived disregard for democratic values, and his administration's handling of issues like climate change and immigration. His policies sparked debates and protests, highlighting the complex and often contradictory relationship between the U.S. and Africa. The Trump era left an undeniable mark on the U.S.-Africa relationship, raising questions about the future of this dynamic. His presidency served as a stark reminder of the global implications of U.S. domestic politics and the profound impact they can have on nations and people across the world. Fast forward to 2025, and Donald Trump is back in the political arena, seeking to reclaim the presidency. The political landscape has shifted significantly since his departure. The world grapples with COVID-19, climate crisis, and geopolitical tensions. Africa faces amplified challenges. The continent is at a critical juncture. The U.S. election outcome could bolster or undermine efforts. A Trump victory raises questions about U.S.-Africa relations. Will it usher in renewed cooperation or a return to past policies? Only time will tell. The infamous shithole countries remark by Trump in January 2018 sparked global outrage. The White House downplayed it, but the damage was done. The remark cast a long shadow over Trump's presidency. It highlighted the disconnect between Trump's rhetoric and Africa's realities. The Trump administration shifted focus from aid to trade, promoting economic partnerships. His slogan, "Trade, not aid," aimed to replace ineffective aid programs. The Prosper Africa initiative sought to boost U.S.-Africa trade and investment. Critics worried this approach could widen inequalities and undermine aid efforts. Another defining feature of the Trump administration's Africa policy was its emphasis on security and counterterrorism. Faced with growing threats from extremist groups like Boko Haram in Nigeria and Al-Shabaab in Somalia, the Trump administration prioritized military cooperation and intelligence sharing with African partners. The Trump administration increased military aid to countries like Somalia and Niger, deployed additional troops to the region, and conducted drone strikes against suspected terrorist targets. These actions were part of a broader strategy to contain the spread of extremism and protect U.S. interests in the region. While the Trump administration's focus on counterterrorism resonated with some African governments grappling with security challenges, it also drew criticism for its potential to exacerbate instability and human rights abuses. Critics argued that the emphasis on military solutions over addressing the root causes of extremism, such as poverty, inequality, and lack of governance, could be counterproductive in the long run. The Trump administration's approach to security and counterterrorism in Africa reflected its broader America First worldview, prioritizing national security interests and taking a hardline stance against perceived threats. While this approach yielded some tactical successes, its long-term effectiveness and its impact on stability and human rights in the region remain subjects of debate. A potential Trump victory in 2025 would send ripples of uncertainty across the African geopolitical landscape. African nations, already grappling with internal challenges, find themselves caught in the crosshairs of intensifying great power competition, particularly between the United States and China. Trump's return could further complicate this balance, pushing some countries closer to Beijing while leaving others feeling abandoned by Washington. His unpredictable foreign policy could create a climate of uncertainty and distrust, making it difficult for African nations to navigate international relations. The rivalry between the United States and China is intensifying in Africa. China's Belt and Road Initiative has made significant inroads, becoming a major trading partner and investor. Trump's return could escalate this rivalry, forcing African nations to choose sides. His administration accused China of debt-trap diplomacy, using loans to exert influence. Cutting aid and pressuring nations to distance from Beijing could be counterproductive. A second Trump administration might lead to a new scramble for resources and influence. This could mean increased military presence and intensified economic competition. Forcing African nations to choose sides is a losing strategy. African countries have their own interests and priorities. A more effective approach is to strengthen U.S.-Africa relations based on mutual respect. A Trump victory raises concerns about democracy and human rights in Africa. His disregard for democratic norms and cozy relationships with autocrats send a dangerous message. Prioritizing security over democratic values, his return could embolden autocratic leaders. His divisive rhetoric could exacerbate social and political cleavages in Africa. The erosion of democratic values threatens Africa's stability and prosperity. A Trump victory could usher in a new era of U.S. isolationism, with profound implications for Africa and the rest of the world. Trump's America First worldview could lead to a withdrawal from international commitments, a decline in foreign aid, and a reduced diplomatic presence on the continent. This retreat would create a vacuum that other actors, such as China and Russia, would be quick to fill. These actors may not share the same commitment to democracy, human rights, or sustainable development. A U.S. retreat would weaken the rules-based international order that has underpinned global peace and prosperity. This could lead to a more chaotic and unpredictable world, where might makes right. A decline in U.S. influence would be detrimental to Africa and the United States. Africa is poised to play an increasingly significant role in the 21st century. Disengaging from the continent would be a strategic blunder, undermining U.S. interests. The African Growth and Opportunity Act, or AGOA, a cornerstone of U.S.-Africa trade relations, hangs in the balance as the specter of a Trump return looms large. Enacted in 2000, AGOA has provided African countries with duty-free access to the U.S. market, fostering economic growth. However, Trump's skepticism of trade deals raises concerns about AGOA's future under a second Trump administration. His administration initiated reviews, threatening to withdraw countries not providing reciprocal market access. A second Trump term might lead to AGOA's dismantling, disrupting supply chains and jeopardizing jobs. The prospect of a Trump return sends shivers down the spines of investors with a stake in Africa's burgeoning economies. Trump's unpredictable nature and protectionist policies create uncertainty, spooking investors. Capital flight from Africa is a real concern. His previous actions sent shockwaves through global markets. For Africa, reliant on foreign investment, a sudden withdrawal could be devastating. Projects could be stalled, leaving economies in limbo. The uncertainty could hinder new investments. China might fill the investment void, but with strings attached. A stronger U.S. dollar poses challenges for African economies, especially those with large dollar-denominated debts. It makes debt servicing expensive, risks economic instability, and hurts export industries. The interconnected global economy means U.S. policies can have ripple effects on developing countries. economic indicators often fail to capture the human cost of upheaval. Behind the statistics lie real people: farmers, families, and youth facing hardship. Economic instability impacts healthcare, education, and poverty. Vulnerable segments bear the brunt of cuts. Economic policies are about people, not just numbers. Trump's border wall symbolizes restrictive immigration policies, impacting Africans seeking a better life in the U.S. Travel bans, reduced refugee admissions, and restrictive visas have disrupted African immigration. These policies separate families, disrupt academics, and deprive the U.S. of talent. A second Trump term could further tighten immigration. Policies create fear and uncertainty within the African diaspora. Many African immigrants live in fear of deportation. The wall represents a barrier to the free flow of people and ideas. It undermines the values of diversity and opportunity that attract immigrants. Beyond its impact on immigration, a Trump victory could also have a chilling effect on cultural exchange between the United States and Africa. Trump's America First rhetoric, with its emphasis on American exceptionalism and its disdain for global engagement, creates a climate of isolationism that discourages cross-cultural understanding and cooperation. His previous administration had slashed funding for cultural exchange programs, including those promoting educational opportunities for African students and artists in the United States. These programs, often seen as soft power tools or unnecessary expenses, play a vital role in fostering mutual understanding, breaking down stereotypes, and building bridges between cultures. The erosion of cultural exchange impoverishes both societies. The United States, by turning inward and limiting its engagement with the world, risks becoming culturally isolated, losing out on the vibrancy and innovation that come from interacting with diverse perspectives and experiences. For Africa, a decline in cultural exchange with the United States could limit opportunities for its artists, scholars, and entrepreneurs to showcase their talents, share their stories, and connect with counterparts on the global stage. It could also hinder efforts to promote democratic values, human rights, and sustainable development, which often rely on cross-cultural dialogue and collaboration. Trump's rhetoric and policies have fueled anti-African sentiment, creating a climate of fear and intolerance. His travel bans and inflammatory statements have been perceived as discriminatory. This climate undermines African communities' sense of belonging. It also emboldens far-right groups globally, threatening social cohesion and tolerance. News of a Trump victory in the 2025 U.S. presidential election would reverberate through the halls of power across the African continent, prompting a flurry of diplomatic activity as leaders grapple with the implications of a familiar yet unpredictable force returning to the global stage. The challenge for many African nations lies in balancing their economic and security interests while upholding their democratic values. Some African leaders might see his return as an opportunity to re-engage and secure favorable deals, while others might view it with apprehension, concerned about his unpredictability and disregard for multilateralism. While diplomats grapple with international relations, news of a Trump victory would ignite passionate responses across Africa. Public opinion, shaped by Trump's previous rhetoric, would be divided, reflecting the complex relationship between Africa and the U.S. Some might welcome Trump as a strong leader, appreciating his blunt style and economic focus. However, many would feel disappointment and anger, particularly those targeted by his rhetoric. Social media would become a battleground for shaping public opinion. A Trump victory could paradoxically breathe new life into the Pan-African movement. Faced with a common threat, African nations might strengthen their bonds and enhance cooperation. The African Union could seize this opportunity to reassert its relevance. A renewed focus on Pan-Africanism could lead to greater economic integration and political cooperation. This could inspire a resurgence of grassroots Pan-Africanism and cultural exchanges. As we stand at the precipice of a new era in U.S.-Africa relations, the potential return of Donald Trump to the White House casts a long and uncertain shadow over the continent's future. The path ahead is fraught with challenges, but it is also illuminated by the resilience, ingenuity, and determination of the African people. Africa is not a passive bystander. The continent possesses agency, its own internal dynamics, and a growing voice on the world stage. Despite the uncertainty surrounding a potential second Trump presidency, one thing remains clear. The United States remains a global superpower with the capacity to shape the world around it for better or worse. Its actions have profound consequences, not only for its own citizens, but also for billions of people around the globe, including those in Africa. The United States, at its best, has been a force for good in the world, promoting democracy, advancing human rights, and providing humanitarian assistance to those in need. Its leadership has been instrumental in addressing global challenges like climate change, pandemics, and terrorism. However, the United States' record is also marred by inconsistencies, contradictions, and at times, outright hypocrisy. Its foreign policy has often been driven by self-interest, short-term calculations, and a disregard for the perspectives and aspirations of those it seeks to influence. As the United States grapples with its own internal divisions and its role in a rapidly changing world, its relationship with Africa will continue to be a litmus test for its values, its priorities, and its commitment to building a more just, equitable, and sustainable global order. While the outcome of the 2025 U.S. presidential election will undoubtedly have significant implications for Africa, it is crucial to remember that the continent's destiny is not solely determined by external forces. Africa possesses its own agency, its own internal dynamics, and a growing capacity to shape its own future. Across the continent, a new generation of leaders, entrepreneurs, activists, and citizens is emerging, determined to chart a new course for Africa. They are harnessing the power of technology, innovation, and collective action to address long-standing challenges and create new opportunities for progress. From the bustling tech hubs of Lagos and Nairobi, to the vibrant cultural scenes of Accra and Dakar, from the grassroots movements fighting for democracy and human rights, to the entrepreneurs building businesses and creating jobs, Africa is alive with energy, creativity, and a deep desire for transformation. The international community, including the United States, has a responsibility to engage with Africa as a partner, not a patron. Supporting Africa's own development agenda, investing in its people, and respecting its sovereignty are essential ingredients for a more just, equitable, and prosperous future for all. The issues we've discussed today are not merely academic exercises. They are real-world challenges with profound implications for the lives of billions of people. Understanding the complexities of U.S.-Africa relations, engaging in informed debate, and holding our leaders accountable are not just options, they are imperatives. We at NIMROD TV believe that knowledge is power, and that an informed citizenry is essential for a healthy democracy. We encourage you to continue exploring these issues, to challenge assumptions, to seek diverse perspectives, and to use your voice to shape the world around you. Thank you for joining us for this critical conversation. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to NIMROD TV for more insightful analysis of global affairs. Don't forget to hit the notification bell to stay updated on our latest videos. Together, let's build a more informed, engaged, and just world.